Today, we discuss diligence, sometimes translated as effort, heroic perseverance, or most of the time, joyful perseverance. All about how to be diligent. So, this chapter, in this version of the text, begins on page 97. Okay? According to Rinpoche, this whole teaching is divided into three main sections. Within these three main sections, first three chapters of this text has to do for generating the bodhicitta where it has not been arisen yet. Next three chapters has to do with protecting the bodhicitta from being dissipated, where it has been already arisen, protecting. That we talk about in detail, chapter on carefulness, vigilant introspection, and patience. Today, we begin the last three chapters. Last three chapters on diligence, meditation, and wisdom. These three chapters has to do with bodhicitta flourish ever more and more. Never stop until this bodhicitta become limitless bodhicitta. There knows no boundary. Buddha mind. So in order to grow to that Buddha mind, the absolute bodhicitta, so we need to grow ever more and more, flourish ever more and more. So how we can flourish ever more and more? The answer to that is that we need diligence and meditation, practice on wisdom. Three chapters. Now today we will discuss on diligence. On this chapter on diligence, according to Rinpoche, he divides into first two sections. That has to do with first overview of the diligence, joyful perseverance, and second, actual teachings on this diligence. Okay. First overview has kind of two main things here. First is why we need diligence. Second, what is diligence? First, Shantideva introduces us to diligence. Okay. Now first, why we need diligence? Joyful perseverance, why we need that? This stanza first. Thus, with patience that we discuss, the Bodhisattva who practice patience. Practicing patience alone is not enough. Now we have to engage in the virtuous activities. I will strive with diligence. For in such diligence, enlightenment is found. If no wind blows, then nothing stirs, and neither is there merit without diligence. So why we need diligence? Of course, diligence is everything. Shantideva gives here example like a wind blows. Anything to move, we need wind. Anything to grow, we need wind. So far, our situation is that all of us have quite a great deal of knowledge or understanding about Buddha Dharma. We are not lack of understanding of Buddha Dharma. Now what we are lack of is diligence, putting these teachings, this understanding into practice. That's what we are missing. We have lots of things to do in life. Every day is busy. Of course, even weekends we are busy. Every moment we are busy. Somehow our knowledge about the Buddha Dharma is kind of remaining there, like without wind, not moving, not growing. So wind like this diligence must be there so that whatever knowledge we have acquired, we apply to our beings. With that, we grow with the Bodhisattva's qualities. So diligence is needed. Without that, everything then remains stagnant. Without diligence. Okay. In order to become Buddha, we have to do practice of purification. In order to become Buddha, we need to practice of accumulation of merits. So all these things, without diligence, nothing happens. Everything has to do with the diligence. So therefore, the reason why we need diligence is without this, nothing happens. With this, everything will move forward. The bodhicitta we talk about can grow, flourish. All the bodhisattva's qualities can grow and flourish. To become Buddha, the fundamental teachings of the Buddha is that nobody made Buddha. Nobody made the enlightened beings. Nobody made the bodhisattvas, but we ourselves, with diligence, we practice the Buddha Dharma. With diligence, then we become enlightened. We become bodhisattvas. So most important. Therefore, throughout the centuries, or the masters of the past, they instruct their student to be diligent. That's the most important. One of the very common that we frequently talk about is the Milarepa's instructions to his disciple Gampopa. Of course, Gampopa, as Milarepa's student, he was with him for a long time. And in the long time, he studied with Milarepa how to practice Dharma, how to meditate. He learned everything. In fact, Gampopa is not different from Milarepa. But in the biography, it says that at a certain point, then Gampopa had to leave to go to somewhere, not knowing that he might see his teacher anymore or not. He asked his teacher the final instructions. Give me the final instructions. At that time, Milarepa said to Gampopa, no, I have given you all Buddha Dharma instructions. That's it. Nothing more. Yet, Gampopa insists. And then Milarepa said, okay. Then Milarepa basically first said, okay, now I don't have any instructions. And Gampopa decided to leave. He was stepping away, going away from Milarepa. Few steps away from Milarepa, Milarepa called Gampopa back. Hey, come here. I have the final instructions. As Gampopa approached to Milarepa, Milarepa turned around, bent down, and pulled up his skirt that he was wearing. And basically, he showed his butt. The butt, which becomes callous, from so long sitting on the rocks. Imagine in Himalayan caves, there's no Tempur-Pedic, those things exist. Really. So long sitting, his butt was quite, worn out. So he showed him this to Gampopa, and he said to him, this is my instruction, final instruction for you as you leave. So I guess the last thing, that we really have to keep in mind is to be diligent. To be diligent at all times. Okay. Now here, second stanza, with the first line, talks about what is diligence now. The first line reads, diligence means joy in virtuous ways. Diligence, joyful perseverance. That's why maybe this translation may be better. This joyful perseverance has to do with practicing Buddha Dharma. Here, diligence, if one is engaged in worldly activities, in the context of these teachings, that's not diligence. You go to work every day, or those things, not diligence. Doesn't consider diligence. Here, we can think of as three kinds of actions. One action has to do with more pertain to negative actions, or the actions, negative actions, let's say. And then more of a neutral actions, not necessarily negative, not necessarily positive. Then there's a positive action. There are three kinds of actions. So more of a neutral actions or negative actions, when you engage in those actions is not considered a diligence. The perseverance, joyful perseverance, transcendental, how do you say, six, when we talk about 6 paramitas, perfection of diligence, we are not referring to those actions, other actions. What we are referring to is the actions, the virtuous ways of actions, practice of Buddha Dharma, practice of meditation, generating bodhicitta, and so on and so forth. Basically, when one diligently, with effort, engage in the virtuous ways, there is a diligence. Especially when you pinpoint that diligence means the joy, the joyful heart, really engaging these virtuous actions, the joyful heart that engaging into the virtuous actions. So that is the nature of diligence. Okay, that is the overview of diligence. Now from this, we already know diligence means joyful, means joy in the virtuous actions. All the negative actions, all the neutral actions are not diligence. And only the joyful mind, the joy in a virtuous way is diligence. That is the overview of diligence. Second, actual teachings on diligence. Okay? Actual teachings on diligence, Rinpoche divide into 2 groups. Okay? There are 2 groups. First, here Shantideva talks about the conditions which are unfavorable for the diligence, unfavorable to this, practice of diligence, to the diligence. That's one thing we're going to talk about. What conditions can prevent us from being diligent? Sense? What conditions prevent us? Why we are not diligent? Why we just want to hang around and sleep and watch TV, and everybody loves Raymond's episode comes and then, Raymond said some stupid things, and you wonder what his wife's going to respond and all. It leads to one another, So that's it. Just anyway, we'll talk about that. Not the point. So basically, what are the conditions that are not favorable, unfavorable conditions to diligence? First, we have to figure that out. Okay, that's the one thing. And second, according to Rinpoche, the conditions favorable for diligence practice. What would be favorable with which one can practice diligence, with which one can be more diligent, basically. Favorable condition and unfavorable condition. Okay, that's true. These two, this whole chapter is about. Okay. Now, first, conditions unfavorable to diligence. Okay. It reads, its contraries have been defined as laziness, an inclination for unwholesomeness, defeatism, and self-contempt. Okay, anyway, here we're going to talk about three kinds of laziness. Why we are not practicing Dharma? Why we are not diligent? Because the simple fact is we are lazy. The simple answer is we are lazy. Okay, then now, which prevents us from practicing Dharma is laziness. That's it. So now, what is laziness? What is laziness? One really have to find out that thing that which draw us back, keep on pull us back. What is that really? First, we got to find out that. Okay. Now, in order to find out that, as it says, first, laziness. In fact, we talk about now three kinds of laziness. Okay? We will go step by step, but let me first explain a little bit. Three kinds of laziness. First kind of laziness is sometimes translated as laziness of idleness. That what we consider laziness is the thing or laziness, lazy. Just being walking around, not really doing nothing, basically. Just spend the time, idle away, basically the afternoon, morning, and just watch TV, and so on and so forth. That what we consider lazy is the first kind of laziness. That's one. First. In Tibetan, we call it that's laziness. How we define laziness. That's one. Now, second and third is important here. Second kinds of laziness has to do with that which are not diligent, more of our tendency to do things that are not necessarily wholesome actions. Basically, all other things, even though we consider not lazy, going to work, for instance, somehow that not Dharma or other activities, holy activities are, again, fall into the category of laziness. Because all these things we got to do, basically, prevent us from doing Dharma, really. We have every day, we have to do things, never ends. Morning, wake up, take shower, and including those things, hold your blanket and all these things. So basically, the whole thing is just lots of things to do. Let alone the unwholesome things that happens to be doing. But other things really prevent us from that we usually don't consider a lazy activity. It's a real activity, but these all prevent us from doing Dharma. Because after all, we are somehow ordinary beings following one's own desire. So more you do, more there is to be done. That's samsara, funny, isn't it? More you become rich, more you become busy. That's again funny. More desire, their mind become more empty. You want to acquire more, like that. So something kind of waiting to a time when everything is got done. I don't have time to do Dharma, but once I'm done with these things, no, there will not be done with these things. In day-to-day life, we think, okay, I have something to do this morning, very important, but maybe tomorrow morning I'll practice Dharma. Well, tomorrow morning again the same. So anyway, long story short, these all activities are laziness from this point of view. Okay? which prevent us from doing Dharma. Now, third kind of laziness. Third kinds of laziness is self-contempt or discouragement with self-contempt or self-depreciation. Defeatism, yeah, right? Yeah, translate this. Defeatism. So that is basically you put yourself down, Somehow you want to practice Dharma, but at the same time you think, I cannot practice Dharma. Discouraged. For no reason, you're somehow discouraged. You think that you cannot do it. So basically that is again, laziness. Consider as laziness. So here the whole picture is, what prevents us from doing things? There's three. The regular one, common laziness that we define as laziness, this one prevents us from doing practice. The not common one, but our early activities, sometimes unwholesome actions, those whatever activities that we keep on doing more and more, we do more and more there is to be done, that kind of laziness. Third kind of self-contempt. Something you think that you cannot do. Okay. So these three really draws us back from being diligent. Okay. Now, from stanza 4 through stanza 14, here Shantideva gives the instructions for those who are being lazy in the common term, that we usually consider that watching Everybody Loves Raymond. Those kind of, lay down on the bed and just, those things. What we consider the laziness, that laziness. In order to overcome that laziness, Shantideva gives instruction from stanza 4 through stanza 14. So, since we don't have time to go through step by step, but I'll just overview this. The main teaching here Shantideva gives, imagine a person who put things off, like, I will do Dharma someday. Today I'm just a little tired, just want to watch the TV. Maybe later, Maybe later. Those kind of things, putting things off. The lazy goes on. And then tomorrow is same again. You think, maybe tomorrow, maybe the weekend is better. Weekend, I'm tired. And the weekend comes, and again there's something going on. Something to watch, somewhere to go. And again, think, maybe next weekend, That kind of lazy, that kind of thing, that just being lazy. So here, Shantideva's instruction for these kind of people is Shantideva's pointing out, life is impermanent. Do not put things for tomorrow. Do not put things for next hours. If you ever wish to practice now. That's a realistic, So the instruction on impermanence, teaching on impermanence, is one of the most important things, really. Traditionally, when you go to lamas, high lamas, request teachings, they simply say to you, life that you have now, as precious as this is, in fact, this is impermanent. no one can guarantee how long we have this life. So the question is, when is the time to practice Dharma? It's definitely not tomorrow. Right now is not a time to watch Everybody Loves Raymond. Right now is the time to practice Dharma. After all, life is impermanent. Here Shantideva says, don't you see how one by one death has come for all your kind, and yet you slumber on so soundly like a buffalo beside its butcher. So the teaching on impermanence supposedly make us turn off the TV and supposedly do practice. The teaching on impermanence supposedly make us now change what we are doing to Dharma practice. That's why teaching on impermanence is very, very important. In fact, we say that, see, when Buddha first taught the Four Noble Truths in Varanasi, first Four Noble Truth, truth of suffering has four aspects. First aspect is impermanence. Buddha began the teaching on impermanence. That's how he began the teachings. At the end of his teachings, again, when they asked Buddha to remain, again, he gave the teaching on impermanence. So, like that. Okay. That's one thing. Now, second, laziness. Laziness that usually we don't consider lazy, but from Dharma point of view, these things are lazy. So this antidote for these teachings, here it starts from stanza 15 through 16. It's rather short. So ordinary beings turn to unwholesome actions, or the actions that they're just hoping some kind of benefit comes from, hoping some kind of peace would result from these actions. So we do things, we do go to work day by day, the endless samsara just goes on. So here the instruction is, that here Shantideva says, you turn your back upon the sacred Dharma, supreme joy and boundless source of bliss. Why delight in mere excitement, in distraction that will cause you misery? Basically, one has to think that the practicing Dharma, turning one's mind toward Dharma, is the real source of happiness, not other source. Go to work, make money. That of course, for us, living in this society, in this world, modern world, lots of money is needed. But at the same time, if one considers this will bring the real happiness to one's mind, then again, we are on the wrong track. The real happiness or not happiness, is our mind. After circumstances do good to some extent, but ultimately our own mind. Our own mind to be in a state of happiness, to be in a peace, is Dharma, isn't it? From Dharma practice, we say Dharma from the beginning, Dharma in the beginning, listening to Dharma, it illuminates your mind. It brings you understanding of the, nature of things. In the middle, practicing Dharma, really brings the comfort, ease to your mind. With that realization, with that all joy, the confidence, inner peace brings. Ultimately speaking, attaining Buddhahood means now you completely leave behind all cause of suffering and sufferings. You attain the ultimate happiness. So basically, thinking that this kind of, what Dharma brings, the real source of joy and happiness is the Dharma. Okay. Now we are on stanza 17. Through stanza 17, through 17 through stanza 31. Okay, stanza 31. It's about the antidote for the laziness of self-contempt, self-depreciation or defeatism, thinking that one cannot do this thing. So if one have this kind of thing, then one do not practice Dharma. Draw back, not practicing Dharma. So these teachings from stanza 17 through 31 is about how to overcome from that self-contempt, putting oneself down, that attitude. Okay. It's, but how could I become enlightened? Don't excuse yourself with such despondency. The Buddha who declares the truth has truly spoken and proclaimed. So anyway, okay, here it continues to read that if they bring forth strength of perseverance, diligence, even bees and flies can get actually at an enlightenment. So the here thing is that do not think that Dharma is studying like these kind of things for more of a monks and nuns business. Bodhicitta sounds like almost impossible. Some people have this kind of thing, but that's not the case here, as Buddha said. Every sentient beings have Buddha nature. There's not a sentient beings who do not have Buddha nature. So the question is, what is Buddha nature then? Buddha nature, in fact, is the enlightened quality. That enlightened quality that we talk about here, bodhicitta aspirations, bodhicitta attitude, bodhicitta ideal, that wonderful life, wonderful way of thinking, the highest aspiration. These all are actually there. Our real being, so to speak, our true nature is Buddha nature. So we say that both in sutric teaching and tantric teachings, like anger, all these affective emotions are not the nature of sentient beings. These are the temporarily arising phenomena. These are fundamental teachings. This is not nature of sentient beings because these are based on this ego clinging minds. These delusions happen. From that delusion, all this pop up, all these affective emotions. May it be anger or all these other affective emotions, not true nature of the sentient beings. And what is true nature of the sentient beings? True nature of the sentient beings is Buddha nature, the spaciousness, the great bliss. So how actually you can kind of understand that is that, let's imagine somebody is very much in upset mood. That upset mood actually throws him or her completely out of his normal kind of being. He or she become kind of weird, lost appetite. Let's say, I usually say this, let's say he or she likes to listen to that music. And when that rage, that anger, hatred is there, then that is strong, intense anger throw everything out. No more good music, no more delicious food. Let's just go out of their nature. On the other hand, let's imagine somebody who is very compassionate, very loving, with a calm mind. So this person is really, to begin with, very happy in his or her true mind, deep in his or her mind. Not only that, he or she would act if the calmness is in his or her heart, and of course, that will reflect in his or her actions, may it be physically or verbally, that reflects that calmness, that peacefulness. So that actually tells us that our true nature is not, this temporarily arising, this negative thing, but very positive. So those who think like that is totally on a wrong track. So here Shantideva gives, advice to overcome with that thing, self-contempt. No, I cannot do. No, it sounds impossible kind of thing. That is simply another kind of evil kind of thing that brings you down, brings you back. And you don't even begin to try because you already have from the beginning, oh, I can do things. Yes, Shantideva, it's mounted on the horse of bodhicitta, which puts to flight all mournful weariness. What lucid person could be in despair, proceeding in this way from joy to joy? Bodhicitta is a joyful mind, really. When there is a bodhicitta, then there is no hatred, then there is no competition, then there is no jealousy, then there is no greed. All you have is this very open heart that is very peaceful, that is very loving, that's very caring for sentient beings. That is the very much joyful heart. That is where we begin. Supposedly, all practitioners, that's where we begin, from this mind. And then all the practice goes. From this continues. So that's from that joy, and then we walk for the benefit of sentient beings, from that joyful thought, joyful motivation, joyful attitude, and then we engage into joyful actions. On that joyful actions continue, and ultimately, when one becomes enlightened, then one realizes the ultimate joy. Ultimate joy is attained. So now Shantideva's real teaching about to these people who thinks they cannot do, who are discouraged. Shantideva's real teaching here is now about aspirations, steadfastness, relinquishment, and joy. So these are going to talk about, these are the instruction for these people who thinks they cannot do. So now before we talk about that, now let me say a few words here. Now so far what we have talked about is the conditions unfavorable for diligence. In brief, these three are in instruction for these three to prevent these three from happening. Okay? So now we come to the teachings, conditions that are favorable, conditions favorable to diligence. What are they? Now, so far we know which conditions prevent us from accomplishing, from being diligent. So these three, okay, keep in mind, these three we have to overcome. Now, when one put diligence, put into actions, when one becomes diligent, what we need to have are these favorable conditions. Now, speaking of that favorable condition, according to Rinpoche, we have four forces, and then two powers. Four forces, four great conditions to be a diligence. First is the aspirations, force of aspirations. Second, force of firmness, sometimes translated temba or steadfastness. Imagine if you have all these things. You are already a diligent person. And then force of joy, really, force of joy. And then force of, most of the time translated as a moderations, but more closer to the literal translation would be relinquishment. Let me explain what that is, relinquishment. Okay, now let us think about the four forces. What are the four forces? Basically, the four forces are, in order to kind of bring up this diligence, being diligent, we must need these four forces. With these four forces, four power, let's say four power, then one can be a wonderful, diligent person. Okay. That teachings how to be, almost. That four force, first force of aspiration, right? Aspiration teaching begins from stanza 33 through stanza 45, okay? Force of aspirations. So, force of aspirations, basically very much your willingness. You just really want to do things. That must be there. Yes, imagine you are real, you're real practitioners. And then of course you have this strong motivations, the great push in your thing that you really want to do. If that is there, then the English, how we say, I like this, where there's a will, there's a way. That's it. All the questions where there is way or not is where there is will or not, isn't it? Where there's a will, there's a way. There's nothing that, if there's no will, if there's no aspiration, then of course nothing happens. Now aspirations to be diligent, really want to practice Dharma. Aspirations to turn off that TV, isn't it? Aspiration to rise up from that bed that you are lying on. That strong will must be there. So, in order that to happen, Shantideva here gives the instructions. So, think about, being diligent, perseverance in Dhamma practice will bring you the joy. And all this laziness, first kinds of laziness, second kinds of laziness, basically all three kinds of laziness, in fact, bring the sufferings. So, thinking the very result of all our actions. So, one try to generate this aspiration, this will, these motivations to be diligent, to be practicing. And of course, I should say that at the beginning, these practitioners have such motivations. Not that is strong. But as these practitioners practice day after day, month after month, year after year, the more this person becomes better practitioners, the more and better aspirations this individual will have. That's obvious. All the great masters of the past, the more they have become great masters, more diligent they become. So, so one remember that, in fact, in order to practice Dharma, to be diligent, the aspiration must be there. Very, very important. Okay. With that power of aspirations, then we will give up the laziness and we will engage into the positive actions, Dhamma practice. Okay, that's it. And then after this, it's a force, power of steadfastness. Okay, that's briefly. Power of steadfastness or firmness begins. This teaching begins from 46, stanza 46 through 62. Okay, 62. Power of steadfastness. So, second thing that one thing about to be diligent is steadfastness, really. Sometimes we do have motivation, isn't it? We do have will. Oh, I really want to do. Oh my God. So excited. Patu Rinpoche actually said that kind of excitement is we call purama, which means in his dialect, something like a cloud that just comes and hang there, and then something happens and then it disappears. So even though this practitioner somehow encourage, somehow have this aspiration, and then next day aspirations are not that strong. So what the practitioner really needs is steadfastness to complete the thing. Steadfastness. Today we have this aspiration, tomorrow even more. If one's aspiration decline, that means in fact, one's practice of Dharma is really not on the track. The more one practices Dharma, in fact, the sign of this is one become more steadfastness, the firmness, self-confidence in it, there. continuously there, even more than yesterday. And this steadfastness will grow. So practicing Dharma is not today, only for today, not only for tomorrow. This joyful path to liberation is to be continued until one becomes fully awakened, this joyful path. When you actually taste this path of joy, and then, of course, it will only grow. But anyway, steadfastness is the one of the power that the diligent person keep on going. Okay. Here Shantideva says the instruction for this is as a Bodhisattva, once they begin, never kind of give up. They just keep on, practicing. So within this, steadfastness, here Patrul Rinpoche put other three kind of categories. He talked about this confidence. Basically, we call pride. So here on stanza 49, it reads, the actions, the afflictions, and ability, three things to which my pride should be directed. So here, in this steadfastness, in this practice, steadfastness, there must be a pride of actions. Pride of action is not something being arrogant, but your pride of actions. That is like, I will do this, myself alone. I will bring benefit. I will aspire. I will make my aspirations. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free of suffering. May I bring infinite service to the infinite sensation. Some kind of that kind of thing. That kind of pride, that kind of self-confidence, that kind of, really, I can do that kind of, the action, pride of actions. So all this, must be there. So that is within this, force of self-confidence, or force of firmness or steadfastness. That must be there. Likewise, here, here stanza 52 is about the pride of ability. Again, if one happened to be something like, I cannot, this is a little bit too much, then that again, we are kind of falling back into the unfavorable conditions, right? Self-contempt. So here you must keep the pride, the self-confidence. That one self-confidence in terms of one's ability. I can do that thing. Ability. Here it says ability. You read here, when they find a dying serpent, even crows behave like soaring eagles. Therefore, if I'm weak and feeble-hearted, even little falls will strike and injure me. If I do not have that kind of encouragement, that kind of self-confidence, even small things can bring me down. So, on the path of steadfastness, on the path of firmness in this path of diligence, one must have this self-confidence of ability, one's ability. I can do that. I will defeat, I will do this. As well it reads, I will be victor over all, and nothing shall prevail and bring me down. The offsprings of the lion, the conqueror, should constantly abide in this self-confidence. Okay. And then last one, on the stanza 60, is we call Nyömomping Ajal. That here it means, again, some kind of determination in this path of diligence, being diligent. One must be, it says like, I will not surrender to the host of afflictions, but like a lion, I will stand amid a crowd of foxes. Imagine the lion, king of animals. He just sits there, not worrying that others will disturb or hurt him. Likewise, as a true practitioner, one should remain there firm, thinking that one is like a lion. No other afflictive emotions can kind of penetrate, can kind of drag me along. I am the king, in fact, that kind of determination, that kind of, I will be victorious. I will be, ultimately speaking, as we talk about, see, Bodhisattva path is, in another word, we're waging wars with affective emotions. They're overcoming that. We have to gain victory over affective emotions. In order to gain that war, win that war, one must have this kind of attitude, like lion-like attitude. I will overcome. I am determined to do that. I am the thing. So with that, one can, overcome. So here, stanza 62 reads, better for me to be burned to death and better to be killed, my head cut off. At no times will I bow and scrape before that foe of mine defile emotions. I will never, ever surrender to that emotion. That kind of self-confidence, that kind of determination, Bodhisattvas have. Steadfastness, in the practice of steadfastness, the firmness. Being diligent means not only tomorrow, not only day after tomorrow, but at all time. When one continue at all time in the same attitude, so that kind of pride also needed. That's not arrogant, some kind of bad negative, that this is the positive kind of pride. In fact, in the Vajrayana teaching, we talk about Vajra pride. Vajra pride. Vajra pride has to do with that whatever one visualize, self-visualization, that is, in fact, one identifying with that deity, that not thinking that I'm imagining these things, but in fact, one truly identifying oneself with this deity is the one. Okay. So with that, we complete. And then the third force of joy. That starts from stanza 63 and finish the teaching instructions on 66. 66. Now, force of joy. Well, joy is most important. In our ordinary things, when people, I really like when people say, oh, I love my job, you take really joy in it. Oh, this is something very important in spiritual practice too, I mean. Very, very important. In our 7-branch prayer, remember, rejoicing all the merits of the Buddhas of the past, present, future, Bodhisattvas of the past, present, future, great master, teachers of the past, present and future, all rejoicing You're basically rejoicing. You're basically joyful, always. Remember, Bodhisattva path is a joyful path of joy. When Bodhisattva encounter these adversities, for instance, when we talk about last time, being patient, respecting sentient beings. Respecting sentient beings are the field of merit with which we accumulate merit. With that merit, we become enlightened. If there's no sentient beings, what else we are going to do? For Bodhisattva, if somebody is getting on your nerve, in fact, this Bodhisattva is very joyful now. Really. Somebody really shakes your comfort zone, you are really happy. Imagine if that happened, then what is there for Bodhisattva that makes him or her not happy? Imagine that. Last time on patient chapter we talk about sentient beings are needed. Sentient beings, without them, how we practice patience? Without them, how we practice compassion? Without them, how we practice forgiveness? Everything, sentient beings. So when sentient beings give you that opportunity to practice patience, that opportunity to practice compassion, that is the time that you be happy. You have to be joyful. Then part of Bodhisattva do not have anything really brings him or her not to be happy. Always joyful path to joyful path. It says like on the 66, stanza 66, the elephant tormented by the noonday sun, imagine in India very hot, will drive into the water of a lake. And likewise, I must plunge into my work that I might bring it to completion. Joyfully, happily, that very much sitting all day in the heat, sitting all day, all lifetime in the heat of affective emotions. We are really tired. Bodhisattva things, True Bodhisattva things. I'm too tired, really. I'm beaten by this endless, tormented by this endless affective emotions. So much hard work. It has been very difficult. Now, I'm just letting things go and just enter into this mind of free, this mind of no heat of affective emotions, peaceful state of mind. To that peaceful state of mind, this Bodhisattva is with joyfully just enter to that peaceful mind of bodhicitta. What is here? Bodhicitta. So, part of course, part of the bodhicitta from the beginning, in the middle, to the end, always joyful path. So, being that is the case, when one practices Dharma, there must be a joy there, happily. This is the practicing Dharma is the time when one kind of, as Longchenpa, the great master, said that, imagine you carrying a heavy load all around and you are really tired. Isn't that a good idea to let the heavy load down, put aside, and walk freely? So Dharma practice, application of Dharma practice, realization of Dharma practice is kind of as if the heavy loads 1 pound by 1 pound, we are taking things off. Ultimately, then one's mind become free of all these burdens of everyday emotions. And that, when one become completely free, that's called enlightenment, right? Okay. So, what we need? To be diligent. The force of joy. The force of joy. Oh, I want to practice Dhamma. Oh, life, samsara. Yes, I have to deal with samsara. I cannot escape. I have these things, I have that things. Husband, wife, kid in a house. No escape. In the midst of all this, yes, I joyfully enter the path of Buddha Dharma. This is the only path that really brings inner joy, that really frees oneself from this burden. So that is what it is. And when one becomes diligent, when one put Dharma into practice, have this attitude. Long story short. Yeah. Okay, now stanza 67. The force of, sometimes translated as moderation or relinquishment, here translated as. Basically what this is walking on the path of a balance. Let me first read this, It says, if impaired by weakness or fatigue, I will lay the work aside and better to resume. The better to resume. And I will leave the task when it's complete, all avid for the work that's next to come. Anyway, let's imagine if you all of a sudden, while practicing Dharma, some kind of fatigue, some kind of weakness, some kind of sickness set in. If that happens, you don't again, try again to practicing Dharma without thinking of your own sickness. In fact, that, if that sickness is worsened, that's not wise. So basically, in some ways, Dhamma is Buddha Dhamma practice, Buddha Dhamma teaching. It's very much common sense, You have a little bit symptom today, you could just rest, lay down. I'm not sure if you want to watch Everybody Loves Raymond TV on, but just lay down, recover from that. Then recover from that so that you can better practice tomorrow. That again, that mentality, that motivation is not stop, want to practice. So that, as the Buddha said, if the monks and nuns are sick, physically sick, then some restrictions must be lifted. If that brings some to the physical needs, Like that, basically, here diligence, imagine that one doing prostrations with this joyful heart, doing prostration, physical needs something, need to be rested, so that you can do better tomorrow, better, do prostration better, more accumulate more virtuous action. Next day, we stop. So force of sometimes moderation, that actually is also meaningful, somehow taking the middle path. So here translated as the relinquishment. So when there's need, we relinquish. Why we relinquish is so that we can get better, so that we can do better the next time. That's the point here. Okay, so 4 pose is complete. And next, 2 powers. two powers. First is the power of thorough engagement of the practice. That's how translated in Tibetan. Sulembitop. The next Wangjuritop translated as the power of dominion over one's three doors. Okay. So this first power of thorough engagement of the practice begins from stanza 68 through 74. Okay? 74. So the power of thorough engagement of the practice has to do basically with the practice of mindfulness, the carefulness, vigilant introspections we talk about. Here Shantideva gives the example like we practitioners working with our affective emotions. It's as if like we are in the battlefield, waging war with the emotion, battlefield, in the battlefield. When you are in the midst of battlefield, the idea is our affective emotions are ready to pop up. They're just waiting there, some kind of condition, waiting there, somebody, your friend or boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, somebody says something, just waiting for that. And then it immediately just pops up. That's like in a battlefield. We're in a battlefield. Emotions are ready to strike us. So imagine if you are in the battlefield, you will be really careful. You must be practicing vigilance. You must be practicing mindfulness. You must be practicing carefulness. That is the situation here, in fact. So, this practitioner to be diligent, in order that diligence to be true diligent person, to be practicing Dharma, one always have this kind of mindfulness. After all, we are as if like we are in the battlefield, emotions ready to strike. Okay. And then stanza 75 through 76 is then power of dominion over one's three doors. Now, as this reads, the last stanza, just as flaxen threads wrapped to and fro, impelled by a very breath of wind, so all I do will be achieved, controlled by movement of a joyful heart, a joyful diligence, joyful perseverance. So basically, what we have is three doors: body, speech, and mind. So diligence must have. Being diligent means one be able to kind of work with these three doors at all times, whenever one wish, not let the unfavorable condition like all this laziness draw the practitioners back. He or she is ready to practice. She is being diligent at all time. So the result of now, I should say, what we talk about is then, first we recognize what are the unfavorable conditions for our diligence. We recognize that and we try to avoid these three unfavorable conditions. And favorable conditions, what are they? They have to something we have to think about, we try to generate. Those things we talk about, aspirations and joy and steadfastness. First, aspirations. Aspiration alone not enough. The steadfast is needed. Keep on going, really. Keep on. Keep on. Steadfastness. And that keep on is not something you are really keep on like you have to go to work, otherwise you will let all things, but joyful, path of joy. If you are really on the path of Bodhisattva, you are joyful, always. And then using a common sense relinquishment, that when do accordingly, if there's needed to be pause for a few hours, few days even, that you take it. That will serve a better purpose for next to resume. And then two powers. Power thoroughly engagement as the practice of mindfulness. And then with all these things, then one become one has control over one's own body, speech, and mind. And that way, we continue our practice of Buddha Dharma. And that is the path of Buddha Dharma, joyful path. We begin with bodhicitta, we continue with this joyful path, and we aim not only for oneself, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings awaken to this joyful path. May all sentient beings awaken to this ultimate result of this path. So this is the Bodhisattva's practice, joyful path. On this path, to be diligent at all times. What we need the most is diligence. I hope with this kind of discussion, bring some kind of awareness to our unfavorable circumstances, unfavorable things that which prevent us from being diligent. This kind of discussions supposedly bring to oneself some encouragement, some clarity how to be diligent. When you are being diligent, you will be able to effectively walk on this path of Bodhisattva.